That inquiry will need to answer the following questions. Why did the first police investigation fail? What exactly was going on at News of the World and what was going on at other newspapers? Second, a separate inquiry to look at the culture, the practices and the ethics of the British press. In particular, it will look at how our newspapers are regulated and make recommendations for the future. That inquiry should start as soon as possible, ideally this summer. I also have to make a decision about News Corporation's plans to buy the shares it does not already own in B-Sky B.
Jeremy Hunt, the Culture Secretary. Well, joining us now from our studio in Brighton is Martin Campbell, a former Chief Advisor on radio to Ofcom. Thank you very much indeed for your time this evening. Just talk us through what actually happens next when a bid is referred to the Competition Commission.
Well, what happens really is that a lot of this has now gone back to square one. The Competition Commission is likely probably to take about 6 months to come to any sort of decision about plurality and how much of journalism News Corporation actually controls in this country. So they'll now be looking again at all the Sky News issues and whether Sky News will have to be hived off, and one assumes that they will certainly conclude that. Then they'll look at News International's closure of News of the World, whether that actually affects the landscape, and a lot of people think actually that it doesn't. And one of the interesting things, of course, is that they don't have the issue which is causing a lot of the headlines now, which is the fit and proper issue, whether people are fit and proper to hold broadcast licenses. That is down to Ofcom, and the phrase that is being used is Ofcom are at liberty to look at that, which I bet they love that. That's a bit like an invitation to juggle with soot. They can look at it, and they probably will be asked to look at it. But they could look at it now, because of course these people already hold licenses anyway, so it needn't necessarily be a takeover issue. It could be an issue that they look at now, but I doubt that they will.
So News Corp, News International, well and truly under the microscope. During this period of 6 months or so with the Competition Commission, do you think there'll be much discussion on regulation of the industry, or will there be more of a look at the laws that already exist?
I think what will happen is, it's very difficult to second guess this, but I think that there will be one of two things. Either a hell of a lot will happen to ratchet up regulation as far as newspapers are concerned, or I think the debate will bring about an awful lot of people who say, well, look, why don't we actually look to the laws of the land? Because when you start looking at broadcasting regulation, you have to look at it in the broad landscape, and that has to include the internet. And the internet is very difficult to regulate, and no one thinks that an Ofcom type regulator will be able to regulate the internet. The PCC is a bit of a busted flush as far as newspapers are concerned. So one of two things are going to happen. Either you will have an Ofcom type organisation looking after newspapers, and I think that will get a lot of resistance. Or you could have the school of thought emerging that says, well, look, we've got contempt laws, we've got privacy laws, we've got libel laws. Why don't we actually look to the laws of the land? And interestingly, now it's taken years for somebody to look at contempt. Now that's happened. And I think it might happen with other laws as well. And you may well conclude, actually, more regulation is not the answer, but actually using the laws of the land, not necessarily media laws, is the way forward.
So do you see all of these investigations on plurality, on media plurality, on regulation, and whether the laws that are already in place are sufficient? Do you see all of these things feeding one another, if you like?
Yes, I think they will. What this has shown, interestingly today, all the activity we've had today with the Competition Commission and Ofcom being asked asked to make a judgment, which now, of course, they don't have to do. They were being asked to make a judgment as to whether Murdoch's undertakings meant that he could be trusted in the future. Well, I mean, Ofcom are not psychic; they're not going to be able to do that sort of stuff. But what it has done is it's shown that with organisations like the Competition Commission and Ofcom, they act as a bit of a shield for government. And when it comes round to election time, you always hear politicians talking about the bonfire of quangos and so on. But actually, when it comes down to it, and you get a day like today, you realise why you're not going to feel the heat of that someday soon.
OK, Martin Campbell, thank you very much.
You're welcome.